Hello, welcome everybody to this webinar entitled A Guide to Telecom Expense Management. Today's session is all about telecom for the enterprise. We'll be looking at how businesses can improve their financial efficiency using TEM. We're going to chat about wireless, voice and data services, as well as niche services such as voice trading and dealer boards. We promise plenty of real-life examples, as well as stories of businesses that have successfully embraced change. Now, I'm Bruce. I'm your host and facilitator for today. Thank you for joining us again. I'm delighted to say we're joined by Sarah and Alistair, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves now. They are our panel. Sarah, do you want to start, please? Who you are, where you're from, job title.
Thank you. Sarah Baker. I am the Global Head of Commercial Management for CJC. My background is initially with market data. I spent 20 years in the market data arena, right from administration through to vendor management procurement, and now is managing the consultancy side of CJC. And telecoms has quickly become a huge part of our expertise as well. It fits nicely with the market data background. CJC provide expert consultancy across market data and telecoms, using services such as Calero MDM and Calero's TEM solutions.
Fabulous. Alistair.
Hi, Alistair Brooker. So I'm VP of Operations at Calero. Worked at Calero for about 18 years, primarily in sort of similar to Sarah, financial services background, market data. But there's much crossover with telecom expense, particularly with our customers. So a lot of financial services customers have that need for telecom expense management and more recently sort of software license management. Calero is a software provider producing telecom and technology expense management solutions. So, market data manager, which we'll talk about later, telecom expense management, and also our SaaS and UCaaS solution as well. So IT expense across the platforms.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for so generously giving your time today. We're very grateful. I've got some questions for you. So we thought I'd start broad, relatively broad. So could you just explain the telecom landscape to us and the challenges that businesses are facing as they keep trying to keep pace with all these new technologies, rising costs, multiple vendors, and adapted to changes such as us all working from home? So, Sarah, I'm hoping you're going to kick us off. So the landscape and the challenges, please.
So the telecoms landscape has grown through a couple of those for the reasons of you've just described, really, as our world has changed. COVID and home working becoming more the norm, and then the reversal of that. But even right back 10 years ago, there became an influx of providers, and there was a lot of more procurement management that is required across the telecoms landscape. But also the cost then kind of grew. So IT and telecoms managers really found the requirement to maintain those costs, but they had no visibility of what that cost was. So there was a need for some visibility. There was a need for ownership as well. A lot of the IT and telecoms managers also were quite close to the market data managers. And they could see the market data managers having this great platform to show all of their market data costs and expenses and their contracts. And they could tell you what one trader, one broker cost. And so they wanted to kind of get in on that game and say, look, if they can do it for that, we want to be able to tell our IT managers what their desks cost and allocate those costs fairly, but manage those costs too. Because the vendors do not always get it right. And having that visibility allows you to challenge your vendors. And then those vendors changed. There was a lot of mergers and acquisitions across the industry. Lots of different resellers. Organizations have third-party agreements with resellers. And it allows for something, there was a real need to get a grip of where are these costs and how can we manage these and how can we keep a control of them, and put processes in place in our organizations to keep a strict control over the purchase and allocation of those costs.
Alistair, does that all sound familiar to you, those challenges that Sarah
Yeah, very
has
much
so
so.
eloquently articulated to us?
Yes, exactly. You probably saw me nodding. I mean, this is a challenge that's been, or a series of challenges that's been around for decades, I would say, for some organisations. It's not always a new thing. There's always been struggles with crossover and ownership, as Sarah mentioned, between market data managers, network telecom managers as well, in the same sort of, probably in the same room, in the same area, similar desks, but different in the way that they were tracking and looking after this, and sort of unsure who was owning all of this, particularly when there was invoices coming in from these providers. They could have been market data providers, but some were telecom services that were coming in, and some were market data services, and so there was a need to be, looking after that. So, yeah, very much what Sarah, echoed earlier.
So what's the impact of all this? I understand that there's a lot of change, there's a lot of challenging times, it's a fast-moving sector, you've got multiple vendors, etc., etc. What is the impact of this on the businesses that are listening today? What does that mean for them, all this change, all this challenge? Sarah?
Escalating costs, it's a real big item for all organizations. Again, like market data, is that there was this need for what's out there, what are we paying, and there's a bill landed on my desk. Is it my responsibility? Who should I charge? Where is this cost going? Can I cut it? If I don't pay it, what happens? Or if I contact the vendor and tell them I don't want it anymore, what's my liability? Have I entered into a 5-year agreement with a provider that I don't know about?
Lack of visibility.
A huge lack of visibility over these ever increasing costs. And the technology over the last 10 years has just leapt forward.
Yeah, I presume, Alistair, that telecoms is a big line item for a lot of businesses. It's a huge percentage of their total costs. Have you got anything to share with us on what that might be for an average business?
Yeah, I mean, telecom, as well as, we've been talking about market data, financial services already, but, both of those are kind of top three categories of spend behind things like real estate, salaries, etc. Telecom spend is probably upwards of 35% for some organizations. So huge amount, huge portion of spend to sort of look after and manage. And I think what Sarah was talking about earlier with, sort of lack of ownership, it's networks, it's telecom, it's market data. Where does it fit? Where does it land? Sometimes there's a lack of knowledge, in terms of looking after it. You've got low latency lines coming in, market data trading lines, other fixed lines. And also, some of these could be old. They could be unused, could be underutilized, lack of usage, inactive, but still being charged. So that's what Sarah was talking about earlier with, contracts, etc.
Alistair, in my opening monologue, I mentioned wireless, voice, and data services. I presume not all of them have grown at an equal pace. So if we were to look back 10 years ago to where we are today, which of those three has grown the most then? Because they can't have all grown equally, have they? Have some come from nowhere?
So the wireless mobility has obviously grown with, mobile phone use, other sort of wireless devices, etc. That has grown the most because every person on the planet has got, a device, and business devices are also obviously key, expanding out. When they are business devices, what should that particular user be allowed to do with that mobile device? What should they not be allowed to do? So there's things like mobile device management, which I sometimes struggle in the industry because that's also an MDM alongside market data manager. But the wireline and the voice trading is still, it's still a big thing, right? So you still have, brokers in the industry with dealer boards with lines coming into those dealer boards, those, IPC processes, as well as all of those fixed lines for all other organizations, outside of financial services. There is always inactive items that need identifying and, and sort of removing for savings.
Yeah, without stating the obvious, telecoms is fairly essential to all businesses.
Yes.
Okay, so let's switch from the doom and gloom and the challenge to what our audience today should actually be doing about it. Let's talk about the now. So, Alistair, I'm hoping you're going to just share with the audience how they should overcome these challenges and optimize their spend. Please explain what new technology or software is out there to help. So, you've set the scene brilliantly. What should we do about it?
So, I mean, Calero has been around for coming up on 30 years. We've been building software and providing that to our customers for a long time. Previously, we were known in the organizational industry as MDSL, and we've come on leaps and bounds and strengthened together through a couple of mergers to build more software out of that, right? So there's more coming all the time. We started with Market Data Manager. That's the MDM reference I had earlier. And then after we had some market data customers using our Market Data Manager system, probably about 8 to 10 years in, it was that old, adage thing that we've mentioned a minute ago, which was we've got this telecom network spend that we also need to manage, in teams next to us. What are they going to do? How are they going to manage it? So we built
It's quite a natural progression.
Exactly, yeah, or exactly organically grown. So those market data customers, those financial services, those banks, they were asking us to build a telecom system. So we built TEM, and that has obviously grown and flourished and is sold widely outside the financial services industry. And then that's developed more recently into SaaS, UCaaS, software license management, unified communications, etc. So Calero is nicely placed to offer solutions across that technology landscape, and there's obviously great crossover, as we saw earlier, with market data infrastructure, fixed lines, telecom, software license. So it fits nicely under one umbrella.
And Sarah, where do you get plugged into all of this?
So a bit like Alistair was saying, is that where his systems for Market Data Manager MDM cross over with the requirement from the telecoms organizations, it's where the skill set of managing that data is very similar. And there's a requirement for costs to be tracked against users, just like market data. There's a requirement for invoices to be validated, just like market data. And there's a requirement to manage contracts and exposure of costs, just like market data. So, and I can go back those 20 years and remember sitting in the user groups that MDSL in those days held. Some of them were really quite heated and with, I want this, we need this, we need to replicate this great MDSL MDM system. And it was fantastic to watch it grow so quickly. And I was quite young in the industry then, but we were a real part of the telecoms expense management growth and evolution. But the skill set of my market data sort of peers and teams crossed over really well, and that's where we became the experts in this area. And you can
it was a natural progression, natural translation. Take that skill and apply it to telecoms.
Absolutely, and those kind of analytical minds of being able to see the wood through the trees and also administer the database properly, because we understood what our business needed from the market data arena. We knew what they needed to see on their reports, and we could then translate that over into the telecoms world. But the key thing for us was that actually MDM, you could input your HR information, and so it was sat there, and if there was a lever, instantly we can see, okay, what's that service? What services has that lever got? Or we've got a joiner, a new starter who needs a Bloomberg, a mobile phone, a BlackBerry, going back a long time now, a BlackBerry, and we can see where our spare licenses are. So those that might seem like basic administrative tasks were there on your screen in one place.
Yeah. Okay. So you've sold the promise to me. I totally get it. But what does a plan actually look like, Alistair? What does an effective telecom expense management plan? What's it look like? What would be in it?
Yeah, I mean, Sarah just mentioned it, right? So it was user cost allocation is obviously one of the first things that a lot of prospective clients need. That's what they're looking for. They want to be able to identify joiners, leavers, movers. What have they got? What do we need to cancel? What do we need to give them? And that's not, we've been talking all the way through this about market data, telecom, software license. It's the same. It's the same regardless of sort of technology. They want to be able to reconcile invoices because they're getting charged a lot of money for these different services, and they want to be able to reconcile that back. It's not just a who's using it, who should we charge the money to, but it's also is this correct? There's a huge amount of savings from unused devices, misbilled. The vendors in the telecom industry are renowned for terrible billing, misbilling, not doing it to contractual rates. So you look like a bit of a hero when you're going back to clients and saying, we found some savings here, either through the the software or the people looking after it. It's pretty easy to do, but the software obviously helps you weed those out. You can manage all of the orders. So for any of those joiners, leavers, you can really build in some order management processes for allowing self-service. So again, joiners, leavers, people picking from a catalog, and then the managers get the reporting out of it. So after you've got all this data in place, benefiting everybody with the reporting, how much are we spending, who's spending on what are these vendors, what categories are they, etc., etc.
That gives you all that information. By the way, I think leavers and joiners are now known as onboarding and offboarding, Alistair. That's the latest terminology.
Very good.
Sarah, can you just share what the benefit has been for your clients of using TEM, please?
Yes, similar to as Alistair has just outlined, it's the visibility of our landscape. We can pull some fantastic intelligent reporting from these systems and allow organizations and managers to review what their costs are, and right down to just like sometimes a telephone line is being misused, and that can be really clearly seen with the intelligent reporting from TEM. Unused lines can be clearly seen from intelligent reporting, and but also budgeting, forecasting, and what your liabilities are. There's in the same way that telecoms vendors have grown, and there's been lots of mergers and acquisitions in the financial services. That's also the case, and a recent client has had a huge acquisition, and both reporting from the inventory of MDM and TEM allowed us to have real visibility of is there any crossover, is there some cost savings, what's the incumbent company what are they spending, what are their costs, what are their vendors, are they getting preferential terms by a certain provider. So that's where my team comes into play, to be able to analyze that data, that intelligent data from TEM and MDM as well. So there's lots of benefits.
Yeah, have you got any examples, by the way, of misuse of lines? Can you give us an example?
I do. I have a clear memory in a large organisation, but quite a small team. So we were responsible for our own BT bill, our own mobile phones, and we would get that report. And our BT costs just seemed to be going through the roof. We were able to, through the use of the BT platform that pulled in and upload into TEM, to target a phone line that was being used at some unusual hours of the day. And overnight, we could discover that there was a third-party provider using our phone lines to phone home
overseas.
Quite expensive international rates. Yes. So that visibility was fantastic, because those costs back in those days was, international calling was huge, and there was thousands of pounds worth of call costs.
Yeah, because I remember you saying that the old BT phone bill used to be as high as your desk.
Yeah,
and
people
never used to pour through it for obvious reasons. So this technology, you don't need to pour through it anymore.
No, you don't. There's definitely some kind of streamlining of time and efficiencies of time. The uploads provided from BT, Vodafone's go straight into TEM, and they provide a really nice dashboard, and you can drill down right down to the one phone line as what are those calls what is this being used for? So it's real intelligence of your landscape as well, not just the requirement, what you're being told. Everybody wants, the latest gear, but is it really required? Is there a requirement for it?
Yeah. Alistair, what is industry best practice? And can we learn from other sectors? We're talking about financial services, we're talking about telecom, but can we learn from other sectors and what they're doing? It can't just be all about our own sector, can it?
Yeah. So I mean, in Calero's, I suppose, fairly unique position, we get a nice view of all of these different adjacent sectors, and the technology that they're leveraging. So where we've been building our SaaS UCaaS solution, so that's the software as a service, unified communications. So that's all of your Jira licenses, Adobe, Microsoft Office, Teams, Zoom, WebEx, anything like that that has, again, a cost, needs a tracking, allocation to a user. In that industry, for example, they've got a huge amount of API connectivity. So you can pull down all of that data directly from these providers. They all have, API interactivity. Telecom and market data are behind the curve with that. They don't have that technology available yet, but they can obviously learn from that flexibility and availability. And it's nice to be able to move technology across our different products and platforms. So obviously utilizing that across. I think they can also replace the manual. I mean, that's fairly obvious, right? So you're moving from, paper bills, CDs, or to, downloadable formats and data that can be streamed through. So obviously reducing the manual activity there. And also I think that the telecom industry can benefit really from contract management. I think in the market data sector, there's a huge push on better contract management for compliance. And I think that telecom could benefit from that as well. What are we actually being charged for here? What are the rates? What are we allowed to do with that? I don't think there's a huge amount. I don't see a huge amount of that in the telecom industry, and I think they can obviously benefit from that, as well as things like data catalog, vendor product alternatives, comparisons, benchmarking, etc.
Yeah. Sarah, is there anybody you particularly admire? You don't have to name names, but is there a sort of an exemplar who's using TEM better than anybody else, and just share a story, or is there a pack of people who are doing around the same stuff?
Well, interestingly enough, it's a great question actually. We do have a client who is very focused on their telecoms costs, and actually we have expanded into managing those costs for them because they did see that there is that crossover in expertise and analytical skills, but also the collection of that data. That's what we do best. And so yeah, I would say this client is a really good example of just paying attention and focusing on the detail for a short term, because once you've got those processes and reporting in place, it's that ongoing management that keeps everything under control. And it sounds kind of like draconian, but actually once you put the process in place and everybody falls in line, then you find that those contract management fundamentals really pay dividends, because you understand that this contract is coming up for renewal in 6 months' time. Let's talk about it. Let's evaluate it. We've got all the historical information from TEM that we can look at. Where are our peaks and our troughs? Have we bought 150 licenses more? We don't need that. We've lost a whole desk. We don't need those licenses anymore.
So a lot of wastage. It identifies wastage.
It does, and if you put the processes in place, when you onboard telecoms and TEM, the ongoing management of it means that it's always under control. And it's quite hard to manage. It's quite hard to keep under control because look, things like turnover of staff, turnover of different administrators, they don't always work in the same way. Turnover of managers don't always want to pay attention or see the benefit in the reports that we're providing. So it's really about putting these kind of processes in place and rules, I guess, in place, and strategies in place to manage the ongoing costs. And that's what we've done for one of our clients is kind of broadcast why we need to do this, and this is why we're asking you to follow this process when you're purchasing, when you're requesting, when we send you a leavers notification, onboarding and offboarding notification, apologies, when we send you those reports, it's not just because we're doing it for fun. There's a real need for you to direct and manage.
It makes eminent sense to me, I have to say. So we're on the home stretch now. Just a couple more questions. So one is, how do we actually get started? So is this something we just buy off the shelf and plug in and get started, or does it require some expertise around the programming and the implementation? Alistair, do you want to kick off? How do we actually get started?
Yeah, so I mean, off the shelf, obviously our products are deployable in a I would say a pretty seamless approach. It's not a difficult implementation to sort of install our products. A lot of customers have that basic implementation to start, and then they'll probably add items afterwards, right? So they'll add that configuration customization to suit business processes later on, which is obviously what our teams work on, with our clients.
Alistair, just a quick interruption. Sorry. So who are you actually dealing with? Is it the IT manager? Who's responsible for the implementation in a company, or does it vary?
Yeah, I mean, it does vary. I mean, you have, network leads, you have telecom managers, you have procurement managers, sometimes IT managers, people who are looking after that spend category, I would say. Category managers also is another title that kind of floats around. And so you are working with those to sort of educate them on what data needs to be put in. So we provide things like workbooks, data collection templates, but sometimes there's not always that expertise. I mean, that's where kind of, SAR and CJC come in, where they have the expertise to go and help the client source that data, go and find it, gathering things like HR data internally, finance GL coding, general ledger codes, etc., and marrying that to the process. But we at Calero have been working quite hard over the last year and a half on building a centre of excellence on a number of our processes and data categories on our software. And one of the centre of excellence that I actually head up is the implementation. So the implementation COE, as we call it, that is building sort of an industry best practice of onboarding all of that data, guiding clients through that. And we talked about it earlier. It's HR, organizational data, cost centers, vendor inventory, invoice data, and then you can get into the integrations later. You can get into the AP integration for, finance, accounts payable, your Coopers, your Oracles, your Workdays, SAPs, those kind of systems that customers need to communicate with. And then there's ordering for, things like ServiceNow integration. So I've been talking generally about all of our products. I haven't really, been generalizing on or focusing, should I say, on telecom. It's it's the same for market data, same for SaaS. It's the same sort of data set and integration that can be used.
Yeah, and you manage the whole thing. And then Sarah, where do you then get involved in this getting started question? Where do you then get involved?
So at CJC's specialist area is being able to have land a client and gather all the requirements to build into TEM and MDM, and build them and input them in a way and with the correct information to be extract and useful information, management information usually, and able to then process an invoice at the end of it and check, is this invoice correct? Is this what we thought we had? So the expertise that we have is that depth of knowledge and experience over the years of learning and the pitfalls as well. We've had some pitfalls. We've learned from those mistakes, and we know where to go to. We know how to gather that information, the people internally to speak to, the vendors to speak, what they can provide, what the vendors can provide. A lot of the vendors could be quite lazy, and we know, for example, that they can send us a download and a spreadsheet that we can very easily upload. I know Alistair's nodding on that one. They're very lazy.
Yeah. But also, you're making it sound quite administrative. But I know for a fact that it's also you're a strategic asset. So you're involved in helping these companies develop their strategy with TEM as well.
Absolutely, and it does sound administrative, and some people think that's quite a small term to describe what we're doing. But actually, How you put that data into your system is key. You can easily just write, BT phone number, person, but actually the information that the vendor provides off the back of that is really important, and the information that your HR department provides you is really important. And then just another tool that Calero also provided, RPM, the Request Procurement Manager, the information that we as administrators need to put into MDM and TEM to allow that kind of straight through processing and request procurement efficiencies is really, really, really detailed. And we understand that. And so we ask those probing questions from the vendors. It's just not a spreadsheet. It is that detail behind it. Also, we understand finance. We've got quite a lot of ex-accountants that work with us. So we understand the finance side of things, the accrual processes that finance departments have in place. We understand invoice processing as well. We've got the telecoms background and the market data background to understand the detail. And the relationships with vendors already. So we often have a key point of contact that we've spoken to at Vodafone or IPC or Bloomberg, and we know that we can get in touch and help navigate the scenario that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, your passion comes through loud and clear, Sarah. But a key question, I guess, for people listening is ROI, return on investment. So it's an awful lot of work by the sound of it. You guys handhold people through it, which is fantastic. But what ROI can people expect as a result of using TEM? What sort of ROI do you think?
From CJC's perspective, what we tell our clients is the ROI is efficiency and control. So if you've got efficient processes, a structured database with excellent information that is managed properly, then you will ensure that there is no waste and every cost is accounted for. You can manage your ongoing contract renewals so that you're not rolling over an agreement that's not particularly preferential, but also your landscape changes. So you've signed up a 3-year agreement. 3 years is quite a long time in financial services. What you've signed up to 3 years ago is maybe not what you need right now. So it's that cost control and visibility.
Yeah, which is what all businesses are looking for. So second to last question, get the old crystal ball out, give it a shine. Where's it all going? What are we going to do webinars about in the next 3 to 5 years? Have you got a clear picture, Alistair? Do you want to kick us off? What should the audience be on the lookout for?
I think there's a lot of buzzwords, and they're going around several different interviews, podcasts, conference events that we've heard. I think for the telecom industry, I mean, it's been for a while. It's been IoT, Internet of Things. It's been SIMs in other devices. We've got a lot of customers who don't just manage SIM cards in mobile phones, wireless devices, but also elevators, lifts, cars, trucks, equipment. Exactly. They need to track where they are, what they're doing, and they're data users. So they need to sort of communicate back to base. And so our customers want to be able to manage that in our systems and track that as just any other cost item to a department, cost centers. I think there's going to be more of this API integration. I touched on it earlier from adjacent sectors, reducing the manual. There's less and less people, expertise to do that. And, not everyone wants to do that kind of manual lift anymore. I think there could be some much better benchmarking of some of these vendors and products. We do a bit of that at Calero, and we're expanding that out. And also, I think, there's got to be AI and chatbots, right? There's got to be more of that.
Yeah, we've got to mention AI. It's not a good webinar unless we mention AI.
I think there's going to be there to serve, customer demands and queries, right? So you want customers coming in and being able to get answers to their questions quickly from the system. So,
Sarah, is your crystal ball clear or cloudy, Sarah?
It's certainly clear in one aspect. AI is just very clear. I think we're already talking about it a lot across all the industries. Benchmarking is another real. My clients are all asking about benchmarking, and CJC can provide that from their knowledge from the industry. But using Calero's systems across market data and telecoms certainly is something that needs to be focused on and expanded on. There's a real requirement for that. Our clients always want to know if they're getting a good deal. So,
of course.
And I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but procurement managers are becoming much more involved in telecoms data and knowledge. And so those procurement people always want to know if they're getting a good deal. So the benchmarking is really quite important.
But also the IoT that Alistair mentioned, that's just going to mean even more data. So there's even more data in the future, an explosion of data. We think there's too much already.
Definitely. And when we briefly covered kind of the impact of COVID, actually, and there was suddenly a need for purchasing of lots of home working devices and better internet for the traders, the brokers. So there's definitely a reversal of that now. We're coming out of that back into the office.
I see.
But is there a requirement for dual? How can we manage that dual working, that hybrid working without our costs escalating?
Yeah. Okay. That's another webinar altogether about the future of hybrid working. That's another topic. Okay, so my last question to you both, pearls of wisdom, please. What would be the one final piece of advice you would give? Alistair, do you want to go first, then Sarah, and then we'll wrap it up?
So I would probably say, hopefully if you hadn't learned it already from this webinar, that inventory systems are key. Addressing the waste is the big thing. Again, it doesn't really matter what industry. Addressing the waste, there's huge savings. You just need to be able to see it.
Yep. Sarah?
I echo that. It's process, to put strong processes in place to manage the inventory tool, which is vital. And as long as you've got strong processes in the ongoing management of these inventory platforms, then we're good. And the reporting will be excellent. And you can have intelligent reporting.
Yeah, and save money. Much greater visibility. For me, the big message is about visibility, and why wouldn't you want to have visibility when it's such a huge percentage of your total cost? Thank you so much to both of you, by the way. This has been excellent. I hope our audience have enjoyed it as much as I have. So a big thank you to both Sarah and Alistair for sharing their ideas, their points of view, their stories, their insights, and their experience. That's really vital to all of us. The last thing I would say is please check the attachment section within the webinar for any relevant resources. We will post some things there for you to read and for you to absorb. It just remains to say thank you for listening, thank you for taking part, and we'll just say goodbye. And should we do a little wave? How about a little wave? Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.